gets past John in terms of his expertise. And so I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and his work and his thoroughness. So and I know D'Angelo well, and so I'm happy to sort of be in the company of these two folks and just meeting you. So 1994, my mother moved to the U.S. from Jamaica, and she lived in New York, not New York City, Long Island.
Close.
I tend to claim New York City because it just seems fancier. But she lived on Long Island, and in 1994, in the 90s, the minimum wage was somewhere around $5 or so. What's the current minimum wage now? I want us just to sit with that, right?
$2.
So 1990, around $5 is now $7.25. So we're talking about like a $2.25 increase. Right? In the state of Illinois, what's the minimum wage? $8.25. Who's ever worked minimum wage? A lot of issues, and I think it's fascinating for us to talk about these things around intersections, right? But when we talk about wages, and certainly poverty wages, it's one of the things that impact in one way or the other, most, if not all of us. We have some story, somebody we know, right? It's one of the things we said on the marriage campaign. Everybody knows somebody that's gay, right? But there are people who don't, because some of us live in quiet because of the dangers about being out. But for most of us, we can look at our networks and go, yeah, I know either I did myself or I know somebody who works poverty or minimum wages. And so for me, that is sort of this intersectional thing around a lot of what we've talked about here is really around whether or not people have access to jobs, and then when they get jobs, whether or not those jobs will be quality jobs that pay a decent amount. And what we know is that $7 and whatever it is not enough. And $8.25 is not enough. We live in the richest country in the world. We spend billions of dollars a year to furnish a military complex that does all kinds of violence. And I'm saying this because Chris and I were having this conversation about there is something about political will as it relates to poor people, right? So there's always the question of austerity. Well, there's not enough, and it's like when we get out of that and we say, well, actually there is enough. And what we have to fight for is whether or not and to what degree we will prioritize, right, poor and working class people. And that's really the conversation we're having, whether or not those of us in this room and the people we are connected to are going to be a priority for our governments, right? And so the campaign, the problem in Illinois is that over 400,000 people make $8.25 an hour. I moved here 3 years ago and my rent was $1,000, I think. Now it's $1,250, and I just got this freaking note in the mail. It was going up again, right? Every year the cost of living goes up and the wages remain the same. And there is something unfair and unjust about that, right? And so 400,000 people, and here are the lies that we're told, that it's young people who are flippant and they work at McDonald's and they're trying to buy sneakers. I'm not sure what the young people are wearing these days, but they're trying to buy sneakers, and that's not true. What we have is a situation where women, black women, women of color, right, parents, elderly people are trying to raise families and pay rent on $8.25 an hour, $17,000 a year, and it is impossible.
Yes, it is.
Right? So that's the problem. 400,000 people in a state that has money, in a country that has money, making $8.25 and can't afford to live. The lie is that these are people who are just, they're in college and they're just trying to drink, but we have mothers and fathers and grandparents trying to raise children on poverty wages.
Poverty wages.
That's the problem. And so what we're trying to do in Illinois, right, and Raise Illinois is this coalition that has been working since January or sometime before that to increase the minimum wage. And the truth is, admittedly, we're not talking about $20 an hour. We're talking about raising the wage to over $10 an hour. And so even in our fight, there is the admission that it is not enough, but we understand that it is a step in this greater fight towards economic justice. And so in November 4th, right, there will be a question on the ballot about whether or not we should increase the minimum wage. And I believe firmly in democracy, right? And this is one of the ways that I think we are attempting to democratize the process. And so what it means is that people who vote in November will have an opportunity to say whether or not we increase the wage by voting yes or no. And it is such a powerful moment for me because we said this a lot on the campaign I worked on last year around like history. I think if we don't pass this, I think years from now history will look on us with shame, right? If we go to the ballot and we vote against this, or enough of us don't show up to vote yes. And so our campaign is to move hundreds of thousands of people. The field program that I'm running is designed to move about 400,000 people to the ballot and to get them to vote yes. Right? It is an opportunity for all the people who say, well, the politicians don't listen to us, and then it's an opportunity for us to show up 15 minutes, an hour. We know in some places it's longer, but the question we're asking people is, do you think we should raise the wage? What's your answer to that?
Yes.
The follow-up question is, if you could take 1 hour out of your day or less and give someone a $5,000 pay increase, would you do it? What's your answer?
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about. We talk about voting in November.
5,000.
All of your stuff about the system doesn't work and they don't listen to 1 hour. Think of all the stuff you do for an hour that makes no real sense, right? You know, all the shows we don't watch, all the programs, right? All the stuff we don't philosophize about. And I'm not gonna vote, and we're saying it's a freaking hour, right? For you to take an action that sends a clear message to our legislature that says we want a raise increase. And again, for this room, we're talking about look around the room. We're talking about people like you and I. Black folks, brown folks, young folks, old folks who are saying the wage is too damn low and we got to do something.